for our country.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Are you drowning in debt? Struggling just to make minimum payments? It's not your fault. Serious debt can happen to any.
Senator Coleman Young, we talked him up. And I think, based on everything that I've heard, that the dude does not back down. He's on the air with us right now. Senator Young.
Hey.
The opponent of the internationally acclaimed, nationally known member of the squad, the opponent of Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, and it takes some guts to go up against Rashida Tlaib, even though she's just the first-term Congresswoman. But the Republican dude, David Dudenhoefer, I may be mispronouncing his name, candidate for 13th Congressional District representative, is on the line. Welcome, dude, to 910 Superstation.
Hey, Sam, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And Senator Young, nice to speak with you again.
Yeah, we met before, haven't we?
We have at a debate. I believe it was in Westland.
Man, good to hear from you again, man. I was wondering why that name sounds familiar. Okay, yeah, good to hear from you again, man.
It's a great picture you took. You took a great picture. A picture with your arms folded, dude in the background on a billboard, and then it says endorsed candidate. Police Officers Association of Michigan. That's one I bet you that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib didn't get. But tell me something. It's okay if I call you Dude David.
No, you go right ahead, Sam.
Okay, but dude, here's what I want to know. Why are you running in a seat that is all but ceded to the Democratic Party, no matter who that party's nominee might be? In this case, it's Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. What makes you run? And you're running, of course, as a Republican in a known Democratic Party seat.
Yeah. So I became involved in politics in 2007, and what I wanted to do was to get more involved in the community and just try to give a different perspective, because what got me involved in politics was a very clean message of individual liberty, personal freedom, and respecting the rule of law and an equal application of the law, which we're just not getting no matter what administration is in office, whether it's Democrat or Republican. We're being divided up systematically by our social groups, by our background, by our identities, rather than having a government that clearly defines what the law is and applies it equally to every individual. So while I don't pretend to look like everybody that I would represent in this district, and while I don't pretend to represent all of their physical characteristics, what I wanted to represent was their moral and traditional values, and just get the Congress back to center, get the Congress back to an equal application of the law, recognize that government's proper role is to defend our liberties, to defend our God-given rights, and just start with a good, solid foundation that we can all build from. And not pretending to have all the answers, because I won't pretend to have all the answers, because I don't. And I don't pretend
no one has all the answers.
Coleman shoes. Right. And so that was my goal. And what I saw from Rashida was just, and I got to know Rashida as a state rep when I started as a political activist back in 2007. I would go to Lansing and learn the process, learn the legislative process, and I would testify, and I would go before the committees on, privacy issues, property issues, some taxation issues. And I got to know her, and her colleagues always defined her as, a really nice woman, but more of a problem seeker and not so much of a problem solver. And what I've seen from her is a lot of divisive rhetoric, every bit as divisive as those who she frequently criticizes in D.C. I've seen policies that are aimed at particular social groups and not an equal application of the law to everybody. And I just see more divisiveness. And so what I wanted to do was just see if I could give voters a different perspective, give them a different choice. And competition is a healthy thing. And Sam, on your show, I always hear you say, we've been loyal to this party, meaning the black community. You've been loyal to this party for so many years. What are we getting for this loyalty? And I just wanted to offer something different. So that was my purpose in running.
Well, when you say you want to, and Senator Young, I want you to feel free to weigh in. But here's one thing I want to know, David, the dude. What will you bring to the political table that will make a difference in the lives of a congressional district that is one of the blackest in America, one of the poorest in America. Good representation. We identify friends and enemies on the basis of behavior, not just skin color, not gender, and not sexual preference, but on behavior. That's how we identify friends and enemies. What difference would having you do as congressman of the 13th Congressional District make in the lives of that 13th Congressional District? What difference will you make in the life of a single mother trying to make ends meet in Detroit?
Yeah, I think when you take a look at how government has abused its authority, I've often said in the very beginning when it came to the police brutality walk of the protests and when it came to lockdown protests, both black and white, young and old, from different backgrounds, we should have been all walking in unison, arm in arm, over the bigger protest, which is government overreach and an abuse of power. And that's been my criticism of government. And so what I just wanted to do was to offer a different perspective to people that would give them an opportunity to be able to grow and thrive and not just get a job to just get by or not just get, handouts from the government Santa Claus. I wanted to give people an opportunity to be able to do for themselves and to be able to take pride in their work, pride in their education, open up access, opportunity. And opportunity comes from people. It comes from people like you in the private sector. It doesn't come from government. And so I just wanted to try a different perspective because we've been doing this same perspective for decades, and it's gotten us nowhere. I mean, the impoverished are still poor. The middle class are slowly being eroded. One of my biggest criticisms of government is the fact that it still continues to just create money out of nothing. It prints up the money. It causes all the inflation. People end up working harder and harder for less and less pieces of the pie. It robs from laborers and punishes savers. And as long as we're under that kind of a draconian system, this is never going to change for anybody. Black, white, young, old, it doesn't matter. And so there's a movement.
I still want to know,
I'm sorry,
this single mother trying to make ends meet. She has 2 or 3 children, single mother, not working, single mother in Detroit, one school-age child of the 3, no transportation. Water's been shut off before in Detroit.
Yeah.
What difference will you make? Do you believe, for example, David, that water is a human right?
I believe that our access to it should be a right. I mean, we do have, unfortunately, we live in a state where the water is plentiful. I mean, my wife and I, we travel the state, and there is, water wells everywhere.
They historically cut off the water.
No, I understand what you're saying.
In some of the poorest neighborhoods in America, they have a history, the city of Detroit, of cutting off the water. And but for this coronavirus that turned Detroit into a slaughterhouse, they would still be cutting off the water in Detroit. But what I'm asking you, congressional candidate, is what difference will you make? Give me something specifically you'll do to help this single black woman trying to make ends meet for her children in Detroit.
Yeah, I think if you're looking to make ends meet, I mean, obviously you want opportunity. You want to create opportunity. And I think there's, obviously higher education is one pathway to do that. And that opens up doors for opportunities for better employment, that you can feed a family of 3 or 4. That applies to the single mom. It applies to the two-family household, two-parent household. I think that the policies that you're criticizing are an exact example of what I would criticize about big government, whether it was Democrat or Republican. I mean, the destruction of the family is because of government. It's because of policies that divide the family, that causes us to have the single mother with 3 children, when we should have 2 parents in the household. And that's what's killing the black family. I mean, the most neglected demographic in this country politically is the black man. And I've gotten to know that because I've talked to people, I've listened to their concerns. And so for me, it's the approach. The approach is getting government out of the way, allowing people to create opportunity, which gives that single black woman an opportunity to thrive. For example, college. I mean, to go to college, it either costs you a bunch of money that you can't afford, you come out with debt, or you're begging the government for money, which means they're going to the taxpayer. I think there's something called income share agreements we can open up the door for everybody to get a college degree or a skills trade, because college isn't for everybody. And you can get the universities and you can get the businesses some skin in the game. It gets government and taxes out of the way. Everybody gets an education, which puts them on the pathway to a long-term career that they can feed their family with. And everybody's got skin in the game. And I think, Purdue University is trying this. There's other skills trades companies that are trying this, and it's working. People that want
Break that down for us. Break that down for us, dude. What is that? Break it down.
So an income share agreement is something that's been tried for the past, I would say it's going back 10, 15 years now. And there's several universities that are doing this. And it doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter your demographic. Doesn't matter what side of the tracks you're on. If you want an education, you go to that university or that skills trade program. And either the colleges will put you up, you put your full time in, and they'll ask you, what is it that you want to do? And you tell them, here's the classes you need to take, and here's how long it's going to take you, and here's how much it's going to cost. At the end of it, you go into that business. If you're not making the minimum amount that they think that you should be making by the time you get out, you don't pay, and the clock continues to tick. Let's say it's a 5-year agreement. There's no interest, no banks are involved, no taxpayers are involved, and everybody gets an opportunity to do it. And when they come out, they have a pathway to a career that lasts them long term, lasts them their whole lifetime. Now, that's something that we can all get behind. It doesn't involve more government. It's not a Democrat or Republican idea. It puts businesses involved. It gets universities skin in the game, because now they're not so much worried about you just getting enrolled, and then they don't care about what happens to you after. Now they get paid based on if you get paid. That means they got skin in the game. And so I think that's a win-win for everybody, and those are the kind of solutions I'm looking for. Getting government bureaucracy, red tape out of the way. That means it takes the power away from government and puts it back in the hands of the people in any community. Could be a community in the suburbs, could be a community in the inner city, could be the black community, the white community, doesn't matter. I want the power restored back to the people, and I want to give them an opportunity, and that's my role in doing this. Now, again, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I just have some ideas that I think would be helpful.
Okay,
I think we need
another
to get the foundation back.
Law enforcement.
Yeah, go ahead.
Law enforcement. I noticed you have the endorsement of the Police Officers Association of Michigan. How did you get that endorsement, and what would David do? Pronounce your last name for me, David.
It's Dudenhoefer, which is how I got the dude. It's just Dudenhoefer.
No, I got that. I got the dude by Dudenhoefer. Okay, dude, here's the deal. Where are you, and how did you get that endorsement from the Police Officers Association of Michigan? Did you get it because you're not Rashida Tlaib, or did you earn it because of some of your policy recommendations toward the police?
Yeah, so I live in the city of Detroit in the Boston Edison community, just to give you a little bit of point of reference. And I do commend the police chief, Craig, for his program, for the NPO program. I mean, I've got my NPO's number, cell phone number. He's got mine. Association meetings, and they give us reports. We stay connected.
Okay, when you say NPO, you're talking about what? A neighborhood community officer? What is that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Neighborhood control officer. You got it. Yep.
Okay.
And so, we just got to know each other. And so I got to see some of the complaints about Detroit officers. I was working at the casino for many years, so many different officers come to the casino, and we sit in the lunchroom and we talk, and they're very upset by how they've been treated in terms of the perception that they're all racist or that they're all beating up on certain demographics in the community or picking on or what have you. But I've also been on the other side too, where I understand that reforms are definitely necessary. Like, I am not for no-knock warrants. I am not for droning. I am not for stop and frisk. I've been as an activist. I've fought against that in the legislature, in the state legislature. And so those are the kind of reforms I want to see. But with that being said, this whole mantra of eliminating the police, I mean, you talked about the single black woman with 3 kids. Can you imagine at 3 a.m., she's got her house broken into, and she can't call the police because they've been defunded, and she can't defend herself because certain policies and policymakers took her ability away from her to defend herself, her property, and her kids. Now, to me, that's dangerous. So while I do want to see reforms, I don't want to see our police eliminated, and neither do the citizens of the city of Detroit. And in fact, what I'm really appalled by is that Chief Craig didn't get any admiration by the governor or anybody on the left, really, for not allowing the city to burn, because it could have easily gone up in flames if it wasn't for him. And so I want to.
There's some interesting dynamics here we could get into all day, but Senator Young.
Hey, so, no. Listen, I just want to say something really quick for Mr. Dudenhoefer. I just want to explain for everybody listening. Defunding the police is not just outright zeroing out the budget to the police. It's actually providing supplemental services to the police. So you would take money and you would spend on mental health workers, you would spend it on psychiatrists, you would spend it on psychologists, you would spend it on professionals who are actually going to help people deal with mental issues, because 1 out of 4 people who are arrested by the police in this country have mental health service, they have mental health issues. And Chief Craig said that about 70% of the folks that are in Wayne County Jail right now are folks that have mental health concerns. And so when they're talking about, which I don't like the title, I think we work better on the title. When they talk about defunding the police, they're actually talking about supplemental services. They're talking about social workers. They're talking about mental health professionals. They're talking about people that can actually go out there and help the police and deal with certain issues where you don't need lethal force taking place within there, or you don't, or really is not necessary for a police officer to show up for a dispute, and particularly with the issue of Elijah McClain. So I just want to make sure that that was the person that had mental health concerns who ended up being killed by the police. I think that, so when we're talking about defunding the police, we're actually talking about providing social services to the police. So I just want to ask the question really quickly, and then I'm done here. Mr. Dudenhoefer, thank you so much for coming. It's good to hear from you again. I just wanted to ask you, what is your position on reparations exclusively for African American people?
You know, I've been asked that before, and that's so difficult in the sense of, okay, if we do that for one social group, as I understand it, the LGBT community wants reparations for themselves as well.
They weren't slaves.
The question I have.
I mean, hey, wait a minute, man. It's not like if we do it for one, we got to do it for all. We're talking about a people that was enslaved here. That's what the hell we're talking about.
Right. Well, but the point is if you're a legislator and you have to make that call, and you've got other groups that are asking for compensation for different reasons, then who do you get to pay that? And see, that's where the problem starts. So for me, reparations.
Well, the problem starts with your conceptual frame of reference. It isn't making a call; it's correcting. It's making right a wrong, an inhumane wrong, the act of slavery. It isn't making a damn call. We ain't refereeing a damn game. We're talking about the genocidal practice of slavery against an entire race of people upon which the American economy was built on free labor, free slave labor. That's not making a damn call.
And let's not also forget, I'll just say real quickly, let's not also forget Jim Crow, those who were lynched from Jim Crow. And let's not also forget that black people are still dying for police brutality and modern policing derived out of slave patrolling and slave catching. Go ahead, Mr. Dudenhoefer. I just want to get
and you know what? And I'll tell you what, Coleman, back to your point, you know, when you talked about the damage that's been done because we're not, doing right with police funding, I mean, another area where if you defund the police or redirect money, away from different things, is one of the other areas that gets hit hard are the task force. And one of the biggest task force that we do need is against sex and human trafficking, which affects the black community the hardest. So if you start redirecting those funds, that's one of the areas that gets cut first. And that's of a concern to me because human trafficking and sex trafficking, to me, that we've got to fight that because that's killing our community.
No, that's a good point, especially over there. And when you talk about the Ambassador Bridge, that's something that's been going on in this city and this state for a long time. So I think it's how you balance it. I think it's all about balance and how you put it together. But I just wanted to define what's meant by defunding the police. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but let me get back to Sam's question. Sam had a question about reparations. Yeah, let me get back to Sam's question. So for me, we absolutely have to, take care of people that we've robbed from. I mean, quite frankly, we have robbed and stolen from people as a government. And we have to compensate for that. And to me, the way you do it is getting our money right and stop stealing from people today. Because you can give a check to people, okay, Sam? You can give, I don't care what the amount is. You pick an amount, $50,000, $100,000, $1 million to every family, okay? But if you've got a government that continues to devalue that currency, it doesn't matter because they're going to lose anyway. And so what I want to do is get the money right for everybody so that what people that produce and people that labor aren't being stolen from today. And until we do that, not only are we not doing right by people, we're living in a way that is not only immoral and unbiblical, it's unconstitutional. You just cannot have a government that creates money out of nothing and with which it can expropriate everything that's produced and everything that's saved for. That's going to kill your community. It's already killing the community. So what I want to do is change that whole system. We want to restore an honest system of money and credit and put the people back in power, because that will strengthen the community, along with getting back to little things like teaching financial, what I don't think is little, but getting back to teaching financial literacy in general. We've got to get back to basic civics in our education system. We've got to keep the money in the community. You've got a system right now where the money goes in the community and it's spent out of the community as fast as it comes in. And so there's a lot of components to this. It's just not handing a check to people, because you got a government
We get that. But tell me something. I want to go back to another more fundamental issue. What would you, as a member of the United States House of Representatives, do to keep the water on in Detroit, in your congressional district? Again, one of the areas that historically had a lot of water shut off. What would you do to keep the water on, or do you believe the water should even be kept on in that congressional district?
We should absolutely keep the water on, and we should also figure out ways that we can redirect funding away from government waste. For example, we've got 900 bases in 130 different countries overseas, maintaining some global empire we built up, spending $1 trillion a year of our money. We could take that money back. We can bring these troops back. Let them come home to their families. Let them spend the money here. Let them build up their families here, right? And we can bring that money back, save it, and we can help people out to get them through and fulfill the promises that we've made. At the same time, you have an honest government that goes in there and stop with all this partisan bickering. Go in there and change this system that benefits the people and not benefits a handful of people or benefits the government. And when you change the system and you change the way we view money and credit, and you change the way that we view taxation, it gives people an opportunity to work, to thrive, to save money, to be able to afford the things that they want, to be able to pay for water, to be able to pay for medication, to not choose between food and medicine. And then you have a community that thrives. But it's a multifaceted thing here, Sam. We got to have the education's got to get right. We got to stop abusing our people, talking about sex and human trafficking, okay? We've got to create opportunity. And then we've got to stop stealing money from people so that the government benefits. And I don't want to
Well, that happened in a recent overtaxation. We just had an overtaxation. Talk about stealing money from people. We had a minimum of $600 million overtaxation as a result of overassessment of Detroit properties. We could have some strong congressional representation on that issue. Certainly, Congresswoman Tlaib has spoken out against that. But what would you do as a congressman when it comes to keeping these municipalities honest so that we don't have everyday people losing their homes to overassessments, overtaxation?
Hey, Sam, I got a question.
How would you work on that issue?
Yeah, probably the same approach as Congresswoman Tlaib, to be honest with you. I mean, there's not everything that we do I'm going to disagree with the Congresswoman, okay? But at the same time, she well recognizes, and so do I, that this is a local municipality issue. It's not a federal issue. So while she can rally and while she can speak out and while she can be a support, which is what I would do, it's really incumbent upon the municipalities, and really it's incumbent upon the people to organize and to fight this thing, which they are doing, but just continue to stay on these people. Because when you turn your head away from government, they're going to steal. They're going to do what they got to do, and unfortunately what they do is not right most of the time. And that's why you have to have a vigilant community that stays on top of these people past the election day. It's what we do of those 364 other days that make a difference. And so, I would probably take the same approach because, really you don't want the federal government to overreach, because once you make an exception, where does it stop? And one day you might get the government to overreach in an area that you aren't going to like. So we got to mind our P's and Q's. We got to stay within our lanes. But this is a municipality issue for sure.
Okay.